There are moments when life leaves you breathless, not because of beauty, but because of brokenness. And in those moments, when faith feels faint and hope seems out of reach, we are left asking the one question that echoes louder than the pain. Where is God in all this? This is not a story of answers. It's a journey through the silence, the struggle, and the sacred whisper that reminds us God is still here. His love is still alive. And even when we feel shattered, He is not done with our story. Welcome to a space where honesty meets healing. Welcome to when life breaks you. There are days when life doesn't just hurt, it shatters you. Not in dramatic, visible ways that others can easily notice, but in silent, slow, invisible ways that take place behind closed doors. It's the morning you wake up and realize the person you loved is no longer here. It's the moment you open an email that changes your career, your direction, your stability. It's the diagnosis, the betrayal, the accident, the quiet collapse that happens in your chest when something you believed would last doesn't. And in that moment, no matter how strong your faith has been, you feel it crack. You feel yourself sink under the weight of a life you didn't choose. You wonder where God is. You wonder if He sees, if He hears, if He cares, because the pain is too loud and His voice seems too quiet. And you try to pray, but the words don't come. You try to breathe, but the weight on your chest is heavy. You smile at people and say you're fine, but inside you feel undone. This is what it means to be broken open by life. And it doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. Even Jesus wept. Even He was overwhelmed. And if the Son of God had moments of agony, then your sorrow is not a sign of failure. It's a sign you are alive and feeling deeply. But here's the truth. Being broken open is not the end. In fact, it's often the beginning. Because it's in these moments of raw, vulnerable emptiness that God does His most intimate work, not fixing you, not rushing to make it pretty, but sitting with you, holding you, reminding you, gently, quietly, that you are not alone. The world may keep spinning, people may move on, but He won't. He stays, right there in the middle of the wreckage, right there in the middle of your tears. And slowly, He begins to breathe life into the places you thought were dead. Not all at once, but moment by moment. A sunrise you didn't expect, a friend who checks in, a verse that speaks directly into your wound. And with each gentle whisper of His presence, you begin to rise again, not because the pain is gone, but because you're no longer carrying it alone. This is what grace looks like in the breaking. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of God in the middle of it. And when life breaks you open, it's not to destroy you. Sometimes it's to let the light in. And even though you don't feel it now, you will rise. Because He is still here, and He's not done with your story. Pain may have entered uninvited, but it doesn't get the final word. Love does. And love, real, divine, unshakable love, never leaves you in the rubble without a promise. A promise that what is broken can still be sacred, that what is lost can lead to something found, that what is torn apart can still be used to build something new. Because we serve a God who doesn't just repair, He redeems. Every tear you cry becomes part of a healing you can't yet see. Every breath you take in the dark becomes a testimony in the making. Every step you take, even trembling, becomes a seed of hope planted in the soil of suffering. And when the time is right, that seed grows, slowly, quietly, powerfully, until one day, the same place that once held your sorrow holds your strength. The same place where you broke open becomes the place you break through. Not because the pain disappears, but because grace has carried you. Because you refuse to give up when giving up seemed easier. Because somewhere deep down, something in you whispered, God is still with me. And He was, and He is, and He always will be. So if today finds you shattered, if you're wondering how to go on, if everything feels too much, hold on. Not to the pieces, but to the one who holds the pieces with you. He is writing a story far deeper than the pain you're feeling now. And one day, you'll look back and say, that breaking, it was the beginning of everything new. There comes a time in every believer's life when prayer feels more like effort than comfort. You know the words, you know the promises, you've read the verses and sung the songs. But when pain comes like a flood and life crushes your soul with unbearable weight, even lifting a thought toward heaven can feel impossible. There's an ache so deep it steals your voice, a sorrow so consuming it makes silence feel safer than speech. You sit with folded hands and a closed mouth, not because you don't believe, but because you're too tired to speak. And in that silence, guilt often creeps in. You wonder, am I drifting? Am I losing my faith? But what if I told you that your silence isn't the absence of faith, but evidence of your wrestling? That the very fact you feel this deep ache and still desire to connect with God is not weakness, but profound courage. Prayer is not always poetic. It's not always flowing with words or wrapped in clarity. Sometimes it's a sigh, sometimes it's a tear, sometimes it's just breathing, and even that, when done in the presence of God, becomes sacred, because He hears what you can't say. He understands the language of your pain, and He is not waiting for eloquence, He's waiting for honesty. He already knows your heart, and He loves it just as it is, raw, weary, and unsure. And here's the deeper truth. God is not disappointed in your silence. He is not measuring your faith by how many prayers you can speak, but by the depth of trust it takes to stay near Him when you feel broken. The Bible says the Holy Spirit intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. That means even when you can't speak, heaven is still filled with the sound of your longing. Your tears are prayers. Your stillness is seen. Your surrender is heard. And when you sit in silence, God is not absent. He's sitting with you, holding you, waiting for nothing more than your presence. Because presence matters. Your presence matters. Even when you're broken, even when you're doubting, even when the words just won't come. God never asked you to be strong on your own. In fact, He delights in being your strength. His power is made perfect in weakness, not when you overcome it, but when you bring it to Him. So if you feel like your faith is fragile, that's okay. Fragile faith is still faith. And faith, no matter how small, still moves the heart of God. Remember the mustard seed. Jesus didn't say you needed a mountain of faith. He said just a seed, a whisper, a reaching, a breath in the dark. That's all it takes. That's all He needs. And maybe prayer for you right now isn't full of praise or overflowing gratitude. Maybe it's more like a cry for help, a whispered please, a desperate why. Maybe it's not even a sentence, just a hand reaching upward in the dark. That's prayer too. That's real. That's heard. And God responds, not always with answers, not always with the outcome you long for, but always with Himself, His presence, His peace, His unfailing love. So don't wait until you feel strong enough to pray. Pray now, right where you are, in the exhaustion, in the confusion, in the ache. Your honesty is enough. Your brokenness is welcome. Your silence is sacred. And in the quiet space where your words end, His grace begins. You are not forgotten. You are not a failure. You are not alone. you are held. There's a weight you carry that most people never notice. It doesn't show up on medical scans or in your job performance or in the polite small talk that fills most of your days. But it's there, quiet, constant, heavy. It's the pain of what you've been through and what you're still going through. The ache of memories that linger. The exhaustion of pretending to be okay. The invisible grief that shadows your smile. You've learned how to function with it. You've learned how to laugh, how to show up, how to keep moving. But under it all, there's a part of you still hurting. And sometimes the hardest thing isn't the pain itself. It's the loneliness of carrying it alone. You show up to work. You show up for family. You show up for commitments. But no one knows the strength it takes to simply get out of bed. To open your eyes to another day when sleep was the only place your heart could rest. No one sees how much you rehearse your smile before walking into a room. How you nod and say, "I'm okay," while silently begging God for one more ounce of grace to get through the hour. You've become an expert at hiding pain, and though you do it well, you long to be seen. Not for your performance, but for your pain. Not for your strength, but for your struggle. And here's the beautiful truth. God sees, not the version of you you present to the world, but the real you, the weary you, the cracked and trembling you, the you who feels like you're breaking beneath the weight of everything you're holding inside. He sees that you show up even when it hurts. He sees the tears that fall in silence. He sees the nights you lie awake and wonder if anyone would notice if you disappeared. And he does. He notices. He cares. He draws near. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." That's not a metaphor, it's a promise. A promise that God is not afraid of your brokenness. That he doesn't look away when you cry in secret. That he doesn't get tired of your questions, your weariness, your need. He doesn't require you to have it all together to be loved. In fact, his love finds you most tenderly in the places you feel most lost. And while people may not understand what you carry, God does. Every ache, every memory, every wound. He sees the story behind your silence, the depth behind your eyes, the battles behind your polite answers, and he loves you not in spite of those things, but through them. He is not the God of the polished. He is the God of the honest, the undone, the aching, and he calls you beloved. Oh, you don't have to wait to be healed to be held. You don't have to wait to be whole to be loved. The pain you carry may be invisible to others, but it is not invisible to God. And the weight you bear is not too much for him. He is the one who carries you as you carry it, who holds you when you have no one else to lean on, who listens when you have nothing left to say. You are not alone, not now, not ever. And though healing may be slow, it is happening. Every day you keep going, keep breathing, keep choosing to trust again, even if just a little. That is healing. That is holy. That is brave. So if you're carrying pain that no one sees, know this. God sees, and in his eyes, you are not invisible. You are not too broken. You are not forgotten. You are worthy of love, exactly as you are, and you are already wrapped in it. Real life doesn't always look like Sunday mornings or perfectly planned devotionals. Real life looks like spilled coffee, missed deadlines, tantruming toddlers, aching joints, and unanswered emails. It looks like being late for work, being behind on bills, and being short on patience. It's messy and loud and ordinary, and sometimes it feels too crowded for faith to breathe. You try to carve out a moment for prayer, but your mind races with tasks. You sit down with your Bible, but your phone buzzes, your child cries, or your heart just feels too tired. And in those moments, you wonder if your faith is shrinking, if the distractions of real life are stealing the sacred. But what if real life isn't in the way of your faith? What if it's the very place your faith is meant to grow? Faith that only lives in silence isn't ready for the storm. Faith that only works in quiet corners won't survive in chaos. But faith that breathes through laundry piles and traffic jams, that's the kind that roots deep and stays. God isn't waiting for you to escape real life in order to find Him. He's right there in the middle of it when you're cooking dinner, when you're folding clothes, when you're driving to work with tired eyes. He's in the laugh you share with your child, the patience you offer your partner, the courage it takes to show up even when you're exhausted. Your life doesn't have to be perfectly spiritual to be sacred. It already is, because God is in it. He doesn't need a cathedral, He made a temple out of you. And every ordinary moment is an invitation to encounter Him. Every interruption is a chance to choose love. Every frustrating task is an opportunity to practice peace. Every chaotic hour is a reminder that even in the noise, you are not alone. The Spirit of God doesn't just descend during quiet times or church services, He dwells within you. That means every moment is holy ground. Every breath is a whisper of grace. Every tired yes to the demands of your day is an act of worship. So when you feel like your faith is small because you haven't had quiet time in days, or your prayers feel rushed and clumsy, remember this: God is not measuring your faith by how quiet your house is or how well you perform. He is present in the breath you take between tasks, in the strength it takes to do the next right thing, in the love you pour out when no one sees. That is faith. That is worship. That is holy. And it counts. All of it. Even the messy parts. Even the tired parts. Even the real, unfiltered parts of your life. Don't wait for life to calm down before you welcome God in. Invite Him into the noise, into the routine, into the imperfections. Because when you do, you'll find He's not just present in the peaceful moments. He is peace itself. A steady presence in your unsteady days. A stillness in your chaos. A whisper in your overwhelm that says, "You're doing better than you think, and I'm right here with you." God meets you in the middle of your real life, not to take you out of it, but to walk with you through it. And when you invite Him into your everyday chaos, you may just find that He's been there all along, whispering truth into your noise, pouring peace into your storm, and loving you exactly as you are. There's a silence we carry that doesn't come from peace. It comes from fear. From years of being told to keep it together, to have more faith, to stay strong for others. It's the silence of the person who is falling apart on the inside while smiling on the outside. The silence of someone who has learned that vulnerability makes others uncomfortable, that being honest might lead to judgment. So they retreat, they shrink, they stay quiet. But silence has a cost. It isolates, it festers. It convinces you that you're alone in your struggle, that your pain is too much, that your questions make you unfaithful. And over time, the silence becomes louder than any scream. You might find yourself sitting in church, hearing stories of breakthrough, but wondering why God feels so far. You might hear sermons on victory, but feel like you're quietly drowning. And because everyone around you seems to be fine, you keep your mask on, you keep pretending. But God never called you to pretend. He didn't design you to carry the weight of your pain in silence. He gave you a voice not just to praise Him in joy, but to cry out to Him in sorrow. Look at the Psalms. David, a man after God's own heart, didn't filter his feelings. He raged, he wept, he doubted, he questioned. And yet, God called that worship. Speaking the truth about where you are is not faithlessness. sits faith. It takes courage to be honest. It takes strength to say, I'm not okay. But in that honesty, God meets you. Not with shame, but with compassion. Not with correction, but with comfort. When you find the courage to speak, you make room for healing. You make space for grace. You let others see that faith doesn't always look like confidence. Sometimes looks like tears. And when you speak, you give others permission to do the same. Maybe you've been silent for so long that the thought of sharing your pain feels impossible. Maybe you've been burned by people who didn't understand, but silence is not your only option. God sees your courage even in the trembling. He honors every whisper of truth you dare to speak. And He surrounds you with a cloud of witnesses, others who've walked through the valley and come out the other side, not because they had perfect faith, but because they were honest about their need. You are not made to suffer alone. You are not meant to carry shame in the dark. There is power in your story. There is healing in your voice. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is simply say, this hurts, or I need help, or I'm struggling to believe. Because those words, as fragile as they feel, break the chains of isolation. They open the door to connection, and they let light into the places that silence tried to bury. So speak, not because you've figured everything out, but because God meets you in the confession. Speak, not because it's easy, but because your healing matters. Speak, because silence has cost you enough, and your voice is worth the risk. Grace doesn't wait until your life is sorted out to arrive. It doesn't knock politely at the door of your Sunday best. Grace walks into your chaos, into your cluttered kitchen, into your overwhelmed thoughts, into the moments when you're at your wit's end and still trying to hold everything together. It meets you not in your perfection, but in your mess, in your anger, in your apathy, in your exhaustion, and it whispers the words your heart needs most. You are still loved. We think grace is something we earn by being better, doing more, proving our worth. But grace, by definition, is unearned. It is the kindness of God poured out without condition. It is the steady presence of love in the middle of failure. It is the hand that reaches down when you're stuck in the pit, not to scold you, but to lift you. It's the patience of heaven when your faith is hanging by a thread. It's the warmth of God's gaze when all you feel is shame. Your mess does not disqualify you. Your doubts don't disqualify you. Your burnout, your breakdown, your barely holding on doesn't push God away. In fact, it's often when we have nothing left to offer that we see just how relentless His love really is. He steps into the story you wish you could skip. He sits with you in the scenes you're ashamed of, and He calls you His, not because you got it all together, but because He never let go. Grace is not a moment, it's a movement. It follows you, it chases you down. It won't give up on you when you're tired of yourself. It doesn't wear thin, it doesn't roll its eyes, it doesn't keep score. Grace reminds you that you are not defined by the worst thing you've done or the hardest season you've endured. You are defined by the one who chose you, died for you, and rose to redeem even the messiest parts of your life. So let grace in. Let it find you where you are, not where you think you should be. Let it wash over the places you hide. Let it flood the fears you can't name. Let it hold you when you're too tired to try. Because grace is not just God's gift, it's His presence. His voice saying, I still want you. His arms wrapping around your weary soul. His peace rising through the noise of your shame. And when grace finds you in the mess, you begin to believe, maybe for the first time, that you don't have to fix everything to be loved. That your worth is not in your performance. That God is not afraid of your reality. He embraces it. He enters it, And from that place, he begins to restore. You don't need to have a plan. You don't need to be strong. You just need to be honest. To say, "Here I am, Lord. It's messy, it's hard, but I'm still yours." And that, right there, is where grace does its deepest work. Not in the moments when life looks neat, but in the holy, beautiful, broken places where love chooses to stay. It's one of the hardest questions to ask and even harder to live through. Why doesn't God fix it? Why doesn't He step in right now and take away the pain, heal the illness, restore what's been lost? Why does He let the tears fall, the heart ache, the situation linger? We know He can. We believe in His power. But what about the silence? What about the waiting? What about the slow, aching moments when nothing seems to change? The truth is, God doesn't always fix things the way we want or on the timeline we expect. But that doesn't mean He's not working. It doesn't mean He doesn't care. In fact, it often means He's doing something deeper than just removing the problem. He's reaching into the root of it, into the wound that shaped you, into the lie you believed, into the identity you've carried for too long. And instead of a quick fix, He's offering a complete transformation, one that takes time, one that goes beyond what you thought you needed. Sometimes, God doesn't fix it right away because He's teaching you how to live in dependence not on your own strength, but on His. Sometimes He's building trust, not through resolution, but through resilience. He's showing you that your faith can survive the fire, that your hope can grow in hard soil, that His presence is not proven by how quickly your pain disappears, but by how deeply He walks with you through it. If God fixed everything instantly, we might never learn to cling. We might never know the comfort of His voice in the valley. We might never develop the kind of faith that endures storms and doubts and darkness. Quick fixes can make life easier, but slow healing makes faith stronger. And God is far more interested in who you are becoming than just what you are surviving. He is not delaying because He's distant. He's not indifferent to your tears. He collects them. He sees every moment of pain, every unanswered question, every breathless prayer, and He's holding them, not ignoring them. His timing is not neglected, is nurture. It is grace unfolding in ways you can't yet see. And though you may not understand it now, one day you'll look back and see the wisdom in the waiting. Sometimes God doesn't fix it right away because He's fixing you in the process. He's softening your heart, deepening your empathy, refining your perspective, realigning your purpose. And in doing so, He's preparing you for something greater, something that quick relief could never produce. So don't mistake delay for abandonment. Don't mistake silence for absence. God is working, even when the miracle hasn't come. He's moving, even when the breakthrough is still far off. And He's with you not just to fix your situation, but to fill your soul. You may still be waiting, you may still be hurting, but you are not alone, and you are not forgotten. God is in the waiting with you. And what He is doing in the unseen places of your heart may end up being the most important work of all. Trust doesn't shatter loudly. It fractures quietly, often under the weight of disappointment, betrayal, or unanswered prayers. Sometimes it's the friend who turned away. Sometimes it's the promise that never came to pass. Sometimes it's the prayer that went seemingly unanswered. And when the hurt cuts deep, trust becomes something you hold at arm's length even from God. You want to believe again, but your heart is cautious. You want to hope again, but you fear another fall. So you protect yourself, you close off, you learn how to survive without leaning. But the truth is, we were never meant to live without trust. We were created to relate, anchor, to believe. And healing begins when we learn to trust again, not because the pain didn't matter, but because grace still does. God understands your hesitation. He's not offended by your guarded heart. He knows what broke it. He knows the moments that made you question his nearness. And still, he draws close, not with pressure, but with presence. He won't force your trust, he invites it, gently, patiently, daily. And sometimes trust doesn't return all at once. Sometimes it comes in tiny fragments, a whispered prayer, a small surrender, a moment of hope in the middle of the ache, and that is enough. God can do miracles with mustard seeds. To trust again means acknowledging what hurt without letting it define your future. It means bringing your wounds into the light and saying, "I'm scared, but I'm willing." It means allowing God to speak truth into the places where lies once lived. The lie that you're too broken, that he forgot you, that hope will only hurt. It means opening your hands even a little and letting love back in. Love that doesn't betray. Love that doesn't disappoint. Love that never gives up. God's love is not like human love. It doesn't come and go with convenience. It doesn't break promises. It doesn't withhold affection when you fail. His love is steady, fierce, unchanging, and it is the safest place to rebuild your trust. Because it doesn't demand perfection, it simply welcomes you, with your hesitation, with your scars, with your story. Learning to trust again doesn't mean pretending you're not afraid. It means choosing to believe that your fear isn't the end of the story. It means choosing to show up anyway, to open your heart again, knowing that God is not only able to heal it, he is faithful to protect it. He won't mishandle your vulnerability. He won't waste your tears. He won't leave you in the middle. So if you're standing at the edge of trust, afraid to take the step, know this: God isn't asking you to leap. He's asking you to lean, just a little. Just enough to feel his presence catch you. Just enough to remember what love feels like. Just enough to breathe again. That's where healing begins, not in certainty, but in surrender. Not in control, but in the courage to believe that even after all you've been through, you can trust again. There are seasons in life when the person in the mirror feels like a stranger. You look into your own eyes and barely recognize the soul behind them. The light has dimmed. The laughter is forced. The dreams have faded into background noise you no longer chase. Life has a way of wearing you down, of chiseling away at the pieces of you that once felt alive. You forget what it's like to hope. You forget what it's like to feel joy without fear. You forget who you were before the heartbreak, before the burnout, before the world asked more than you had to give. And in that forgetting, shame creeps in. You wonder if you've lost too much, if you've strayed too far, if there's any way back. But here's the truth: God remembers what you forgot. He remembers the child who once danced without self-consciousness. He remembers the dreamer who believed anything was possible. He remembers the warrior who kept showing up even after the 100th disappointment. He remembers the spark he placed in your spirit when he formed you in the secret place. That divine imprint is not erased by pain. It is not lost in your confusion. It is not diminished by your mistakes. It is still there, still intact, still worthy. God doesn't see you as the broken version you've come to believe you are. He sees the fullness of who you were created to be, and he is relentlessly working to bring you back to that place. Not by forcing you into who you were, but by restoring who you are underneath all the layers of grief and survival. He doesn't rush you. He doesn't shame you. He reminds you in whispers, in beauty, in kindness that catches you off guard, in people who speak life when you least expect it. You may have forgotten how to dream, but God hasn't. You may have given up on your calling, but He hasn't. You may think you're too far gone, too tired, too late, but He knows better. He knows the exact moment your heart started to doubt itself. He knows the turning points, the heartbreaks, the silences, and He's not intimidated by any of them. He's not asking you to go back. He's inviting you forward toward a version of yourself that's not only healed, but whole. A version that knows who you are because you've seen who He is. When you feel like a shell of who you used to be, remember this. Your identity is not rooted in how you feel it, rooted in how God sees you. And He sees you as loved, chosen, redeemed. Not just for who you are right now, but for everything He knows is still inside of you. The world may only see the tired, weary parts of your journey, but God sees the gold beneath the dust. He sees the strength in your surrender, the beauty in your resilience, the holiness in your healing. So, if you've forgotten who you are, don't be afraid. God hasn't, and He's gently guiding you back not to who you were before the storm, but to who you were always meant to become. Stronger, softer, wiser, freer. You don't have to force it. Just be willing to listen, to let Him show you, to let Him remind you of what's always been true. You are His, and nothing, no pain, no season, no mistake can erase that truth from your story. At the end of the day, after the pain, the questions, the waiting, the doubts, there is one truth that still holds it all together. Love, not the fragile, fleeting kind that comes and goes based on feelings, but the kind of love that built the universe, the kind of love that carried a cross, the kind of love that never runs out even when you do. Love is not just a feeling, it's a force. It's the heartbeat of heaven, the power behind every act of healing, the truth that changes everything. This world will try to convince you that love is weakness, that it's too soft, too naive, too unreliable. But real love, God's love's the strongest thing there is. It breaks chains, it heals wounds, it rebuilds lives, and it keeps showing up even after the world has turned its back. Love is why Jesus came. It's why He stayed. It's why He still knocks on the door of your heart every day, no matter how long it's been closed. You may feel unworthy of that love. You may feel like you've done too much, failed too often, or wandered too far. But love isn't based on your record, it's based on His character. And His love is not conditional. It's not performance-based. It's not given in doses. It's full, complete, and constant. Whether you feel it or not, it is there, holding you, pursuing you, believing in you even when you don't believe in yourself. When everything feels uncertain, when your prayers feel unanswered, when your strength runs dry, return to this. Love is still the answer. Not because it fixes everything instantly, but because it changes how you see everything. Love reminds you that you are not alone, that you are not forgotten, that you are not beyond repair. Love gives you the courage to forgive, the grace to begin again, the strength to keep going. And this love isn't just something to receive, it's something to live, to embody, to give away. Because when you've been touched by unconditional love, you can't help but let it spill over into your relationships, into your work, into the quiet moments no one else sees. Love doesn't mean everything will be easy, but it does mean that nothing will be wasted. Every tear, every ache, every setback, all of it can be transformed in the hands of love. So if you've come to the end of yourself, if the questions still linger, if hope feels small, know this: love remains. And it is not fragile, it is not far, it is fierce and near. and everlasting. God's love for you is the anchor that holds, the light that never goes out, the answer that still makes sense when nothing else does. Let that love carry you. Let it hold you. Let it remind you again and again that your story is not over. Because love writes the final chapter, and in that chapter, you are always wanted, always worthy, always His. If you've ever felt like life broke you in places too deep for words, know this: you are not alone. Every tear, every silence, every ache has been seen by a God who never stops loving you. This journey wasn't about fixing everything. It was about remembering that even in the breaking, grace flows. Even in the silence, God speaks. And even when all else fades, love is still the answer. May you walk away from this video not just comforted, but reminded. You are still loved. You are still held. And your story is far from over.